Today, we're cracking open one of the most influential books on strategy ever written, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. For thousands of years, this has been a go-to guide for generals, CEOs, you name it. But you know what? Its core message is probably not what you think it is. So, let's dive in. The entire philosophy of this book, really, it all boils down to one powerful question. When you're in any kind of conflict, what is the ultimate form of victory? I mean, is it about completely crushing your opponent, wiping out their forces? Well, Sun Tzu's answer is a lot more interesting than that. And there it is. The absolute best way to win is to win without ever having to fight. I mean, think about that. That single idea just flips the whole concept of war on its head. This book isn't really a manual for how to fight better. It's a guide on how to win so smartly that fighting becomes completely unnecessary. Now, to really get why this was so revolutionary, you have to picture the world Sun Tzu was living in. This was not a time of peace and quiet diplomacy. Oh no, it was a world shaped by brutal, nonstop conflict. This timeline really gives you a sense of the chaos. We're talking about the spring and autumn and the warring states periods in ancient China. That's literally centuries of constant warfare between rival states. Sun Tzu himself served the state of Wu, right in the thick of it all. So he wasn't just writing down some abstract theory. He was desperately trying to find a smarter way to survive a total meat grinder. And this is what's so wild. Look at the contrast here. Before Sun Tzu, war was pretty much all about brute force. It was just massive, bloody battles and long, drawn-out sieges that would drain a kingdom of all its money and all its people. Sun Tzu comes along and proposes this radical new idea. A war fought with your brain, one that's swift, decisive, and, most importantly, doesn't cost you everything you have. And that brings us right back to his core solution. This idea, victory without fighting, it's the central pillar of the entire book. Now, it might sound a little idealistic, but for Sun Tzu, it was actually the most practical, logical approach you could possibly take. He called this whole philosophy attack by stratagem, and the goal is pretty simple. Subdue the enemy's army, capture their cities, take over their state, all while keeping everything intact, your army, your resources, and theirs. I mean, think about it. Destroying the prize you're trying to win, for Sun Tzu, that's just a different kind of failure. So here's the crucial takeaway. The best generals win before the battle even starts. You don't focus on defeating their army, you focus on defeating their plan. You make their entire strategy fall apart, forcing them to give up before a single sword is even drawn. The real war is won in the mind, in the planning tent. Okay, so how in the world do you actually do that? Well, Sun Tzu lays out a pretty practical toolkit for any commander, and it really boils down to 3 essential keys to mastery. So Sun Tzu's path to winning without fighting is built on 3 pillars. First, you have to know everything, every single variable. Second, you must become a master of deception to basically control your opponent's perception of reality. And third, you have to prepare with meticulous detail because victory is never, ever left to chance. This is the foundation of his whole system. That first key, knowledge, is captured in probably his most famous quote ever. But this isn't just about counting how many soldiers they have. It's about a deep, analytical understanding of every single factor at play. And check this out. This was his method. Before doing anything, a general had to assess these 5 factors for both sides. The moral law, that's all about public support. Are the people behind their leader? Heaven and earth, that's the weather, the time of year, the terrain. And of course, who's the better commander? For Sun Tzu, victory wasn't about who was braver. It was the predictable result of cold, hard calculation. And this leads us right into the second key. See, once you have all that knowledge, you use it to manipulate how your enemy sees the world. Deception is the tool you use to shape the battlefield in your favor before anyone even makes a move. And he gives some very specific, brilliant examples. If you're strong, you act weak. If you're close by, you make them think you're miles away. You're basically creating a false reality for your opponent, luring them into making huge mistakes because they're acting on bad information that you fed them. So, you've got the knowledge, you're using deception. What's the final piece of the puzzle? Well, it all leads to the third and final key, meticulous preparation. And for Sun Tzu, this isn't some vague idea. It's a very specific list. According to Sun Tzu, there are 5 absolute essentials for victory, and if a commander can meet these 5 conditions, a win is basically guaranteed. And notice how proactive they are. It's about knowing when to fight and when not to. It's about being totally prepared so you can take advantage of an enemy who isn't. Victory isn't luck. It's the predictable outcome of doing your homework better than the other guy. So, yeah, this philosophy was a total game changer back in 500 BC. But the reason we're still obsessed with it today is its incredible, enduring legacy, which reaches far, far beyond the battlefields of ancient China. I mean, just look at the journey this book has been on. It starts with commentaries by Chinese warlords like Sun Tzu. Then it gets its first translation into a European language in the 1700s, all the way to today, where it's required reading in military academies and business schools all over the world. And what's really fascinating is how these ancient ideas are being used today. Of course, military doctrine is the biggest piece of the pie, that's no surprise. But look at this: business strategy, geopolitics, even sports psychology. The principles are universal because at their heart, they're just about managing competition through intelligence, not just through brute force. And this is a perfect example of how that translation works. In the business world, know the enemy becomes know your market and your competitors. Know yourself becomes doing a SWOT analysis of your company's strengths and weaknesses. And using indirect methods to win without a fight, well, that is the very definition of a disruptive business strategy. It's the same logic, just in a different arena. Which leaves us with a final question that honestly feels more relevant today than ever before. In our incredibly complex, interconnected world, maybe the ultimate power isn't measured in weapons or in wealth, but in the clarity of our understanding, of our competitors, our environment, and maybe most importantly, of ourselves. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.